Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I'm your host, Stephen Lomer, and my guest this week is an author of contemporary women's fiction. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Contemporary women's fiction. Let's go with it. Ladies and gentlemen, Karri Moser. So thank you for being here. I know you came all the way from the wilds of Maine.
Yes.
We have another Maine author. I think we still don't have Vermont. We've had every New England state except Vermont. I don't know where the Vermont author. If there are any Vermont authors out there, we're looking for you.
That's
I guess
why they don't
are.
even probably know about
Yeah,
it.
they're just
hunkered
harvesting
down.
sap. Maybe that's why they don't come on the show,
exactly.
is because that's what I think about Vermont authors, is that they're harvesting sap.
Exactly.
So this is interesting. You are obviously an author of fiction,
Yes.
and you've written for various periodicals and things, but you've also written for the U.S. Army.
Yes.
That's a first. I like calling out firsts on Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I don't think we've had an author who has written specifically for the U.S. Army.
Well, my husband was, he's retired Army.
Okay.
He was a soldier for 23 years, so I was an Army wife during about 20 years of our marriage, and I was an Army brat because my dad was in too while I was growing up.
Wow.
So that was kind of, what I was always exposed to. But when my husband was part of the recruiting command in Fort Knox, Kentucky, I was fortunate enough to get to know people working in the public relations end of the recruiting command, and they needed a writer. So they read through some of my other works that I had done for other sites and basically contracted me to write articles that pertain to medical professionals in the Army, since it's what my husband did, was part of the medical recruiting command.
Okay.
But so I wrote profiles of Army doctors and nurses and innovations that the military was making in combat and at home, like at Walter Reed, where they do, long story short, they're so much more advanced than civilian hospitals when it comes to medical techniques.
Really?
Yeah, exactly, because they are allowed to do more without the confines of malpractice and whatnot.
Gotcha.
In combat medicine, they actually are on the cusp of treating wounds well before civilian hospitals learn the techniques that they use. So I did writing pertaining to that and articles for different medical professionals who were really making incredible advancements. Breast cancer research, diabetes research, wound treatment, and things like that.
Wow.
So that was the gist of writing for the Army.
Okay. Here's to the military.
Yes.
Keep that research going, people. So you were stationed at Fort Knox?
Well, my husband was. I lived there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any gold bars?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I was joking. You really get a gold bar from Fort Knox?
Get a gold bar.
You
But
they don't
can
just
buy
give you one?
commemorative ones.
Okay.
Like it's
All
not
right.
real.
So you
But
didn't steal one?
No, because
Okay.
the gold depository is actually surrounded by a lot of barbed wire and armed guards. And
I should hope so.
Well, yeah. There are signs everywhere that say you can't even take pictures. Like if you pull over to take a picture with your phone, they will be on you.
So it's like Area 51.
Yeah, but it's there. You can see it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the commemorative gold bar.
Yes.
We're not going to get you in trouble. People thinking that you're robbing Fort Knox.
No.
So tell me how you ended up writing fiction. What was your first book that you wrote?
Well, Weathering of Sea Glass is the first that I wrote under my name.
And that's the one we're going to be
Yes.
talking about. So, okay.
When I did freelance writing, because as soon as I graduated from college, I did a lot of news reporting. So that was my genre. And I morphed into doing freelance writing online for magazines, newspapers, marketing blogs. I wrote a lot of lawyer websites, that kind of work at, writing to make money.
Sure.
And my fiction kind of just took a back seat because at that time I was raising our kids and moving all around because my husband was still in the Army. So I didn't really tackle my fiction until my kids were a lot older. And in fact, we had been stationed in Massachusetts for a number of years, and then we're stationed up in Maine. And we ended up getting stationed away and had to leave our house in Maine. And I missed it. And I missed living along the coast and being able to go to the beach anytime I wanted. And that's when I started writing The Weathering of Sea Glass while I was living away.
Okay.
It was kind of my love letter to Maine. And it was just kind of like a yearning to to remember those places I loved, and that's why the book is set where it is, and the story is what it is.
So what year are we talking when you started writing that?
When I started writing that was 2011, fall 2011, we left Maine.
Okay.
And it was in weeks of moving away from Maine that I dove into the first chapter. It took 3 years to write because I moved 3 times during that time.
That'll interrupt the writing
Yes,
flow
with
for
teenagers,
anyone.
and I was still doing my freelance work too.
Right.
So that was my day job, and I just worked on it here and there over the course of 3 years.
Okay. So now, why contemporary women's fiction? What was it that drew you to that?
Long story short, I mean, I love historical fiction, but I don't love the idea of writing historical fiction and all the research involved. It's much easier to write contemporary fiction because you don't have to delve into a year of research of what people were wearing and what, you know what I mean, and how they spoke.
All that
and,
boring stuff, yeah, sure.
And how to fix a broken wagon, things like that. Contemporary fiction is just...
Well, in Maine.
Yeah.
That's probably still useful information. And Vermont.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I just found it just more relevant with the stories that I was writing. So.
Did any other genres ever appeal to you? Did you ever think maybe do a little sci-fi, maybe do some romance, anything like that?
I ghost wrote some romance.
Ah.
That was part of the freelancing work too, where I was paid to write short stories, 25,000 words of the romance genre, and military romance. I actually got paid
Military
to write.
romance.
Yeah, but
All right.
it was the
Hold on now. Now, what qualifies something as military romance?
Well, it's military themed. You have somebody in the service, and it's a love story involving, a military couple.
Is that allowed?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was married to my husband while he was in the military.
But
yeah.
you weren't in the military.
No, both people in the story aren't in the
Oh,
military. But yes,
okay.
that's allowed. Soldiers marry soldiers. And
Okay.
Yeah,
and
that's
they're
definitely allowed.
able to maintain a romantic relationship as soldiers if they're
Yeah.
stationed. I didn't know that.
Well,
Look at
I
me
mean, you
learning
can't
things
if you're
today.
an officer and enlisted, and rank plays into it. But yeah, we know soldiers who have married each other, and then they get stationed. Then the Army makes allowances to station them in the same place, so that
No kidding.
yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, we know lots of, like every female soldier that I knew was married to a male soldier and whatnot.
All right, so then you had plenty of background to draw from
Yeah,
to
but the
write
stories
the
I
military
wrote
fiction.
weren't based on soldiers and soldiers married. It was just, one person was in the service.
Okay.
But yeah, and it was kind of the kind of romance novels that I didn't want my name on. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Now, why would that be?
Because it was pretty, graphic stuff that they were asking for. So.
Were you writing sex books?
Yes, but not under my name, so you would never know it was me.
Well, now everyone knows it was you. Do you want to give the name under which you wrote?
No, because I can't. That was part of
Was it
being
Stephen
paid.
Lomer?
No. But yeah, it was just short stories that people paid for up front to go ahead and put on Amazon as their own. So it's an easy money.
And it never drew you to write that on your own?
No.
As...
No, it really
Okay.
didn't. They were the kinds of stories that I enjoyed writing, and they were fun to be a part of. And I really loved reading the reviews of people that, posted reviews about them, and they were pretty well received by people who liked that genre. But I never thought about writing a novel under my own name in that genre, because the stories that I write are stories that are really dear to me. And these were just kind of off the cuff, short stories that I was doing for money.
Right.
But the books that my name's on are books that are really, I could have gone and not made a dime on any of them, and I would still be just ecstatic to share them. So.
Karri, you were writing sex for money.
Way back, years ago.
I'm not judging.
Like 4 years ago.
I just want to make it clear to everyone. You were writing sex for money.
Yes. Very little money, I'll say that too.
Lots
there's
of
not
sex,
a lot of money
little
in
money.
It. Yeah,
Gotcha.
there's not a lot of money in that.
I totally understand.
Oh.
Are you an indie author?
Yes.
And did you choose that path, or did that path choose you?
Kind of both. I spent a year researching both and what I wanted to pursue. And I had a small publisher that was very interested in The Weathering of Sea Glass, but they wanted to change the ending.
Oh.
And if anybody's read the book, they'll understand that the ending is not what you expect. It's not a happily ever after kind of, all wrapped up kind of romance, but the ending goes with the theme of the book. And if I had changed the ending, it wouldn't be the story I wanted to tell. So I decided, no, I don't want anybody changing the story that I wanted to tell and that I wanted out there. So that's what led me to the indie path, pretty much.
And how has the indie path been treating you?
Wonderful.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's really great if you put in the time into researching it and pursuing different opportunities, because so many local bookstores are so supportive of indie authors. I have books in Dover, Kennebunkport, York, Biddeford, just smaller bookstores that really like to showcase indie authors, and events like we've done where I've met you guys and everything, and like this show too. It's just really, it's a very supportive community. And when you when you meet other indie authors, there's not this sense of competitiveness. There's not this, I've got to knock your book down in order to get mine, in shelf space.
Oh, that's been my experience.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding.
okay.
No, it's very supportive.
Yeah, it is a very,
it's a very
supportive
good community. Yes.
And
yes.
I've really enjoyed it. And plus, it's been a learning process. I wasn't much into marketing myself, and I didn't really have that kind of personality, that sales, personality. But I learned that I had to be willing to go out and talk about my book and share what my book's about in order to get people interested. I couldn't just throw it up on the internet and hand out copies here and there and expect it to really make an impact. So I learned how to do that on my own, and I started doing craft fairs, all around New England pretty much. And this is my this summer was my third summer doing craft fairs. And each time I've had people come up to me and buy the next book, because I have 3 books out now. And each summer I've added another book, and they've read the others and they want the last one, or they want them for gifts for people, and I've just had really great feedback. So I've enjoyed putting myself out there and doing it on my own.
Before we break, just obviously your fans are watching, and your fans have really gotten used to a blonde Karri.
Yes.
And now suddenly they're tuning in and they're like, who is this? Who is this red-headed woman? What's the story? You missed the red.
Well, yes, I missed the red. I used to do red like most of my 20s, and when my kids were little, I was mostly a redhead. And then I started doing blonde highlights when I got older and grays started coming out, and it was easier to keep up with. And for 2 years in a row, I kept thinking, I miss red. I want to go back to red. And so I just did it.
Nice.
2 weeks ago.
Nice. So this is her.
Yes.
Don't panic.
It's the same me.
Don't
it's
think.
the same me on the inside.
Don't think
Nothing's
that you've
changed.
tuned in and it's another Karri Moser. No, it's not.
I don't have a redheaded twin or a blonde twin, and it's not like the old switcheroo.
Although
I'm
that
not
would
trying
have
to
been
pull
a
that
great
off.
angle. That would have been my man. Tune in to see Karri's weird twin sister.
As opposed to the not weird one.
Yeah,
like
right, exactly. We've definitely got the weird twin. Whichever one this is, we've got the weird one. We need to step away for a moment. We will be right back with Karri Moser. Welcome back to Tell Me About Your Damn Book. I'm here with Karri Moser, and we have entered the gimmick part of Tell Me About Your Damn Book, because as you can see between us now, we have a damn book, so I'm just going to go right to the hook and say, Karri Moser, tell me about your damn book.
Well, my damn book is a really good story.
Okay.
It's called The Weathering of Sea Glass.
Okay.
And as I said earlier, it was kind of my love letter to Maine while we lived away. It's the tale of two teenagers in 1969.
Okay.
They fall in love in school and on the beach in a coastal tourist trap kind of town based on Ocean Park, Old Orchard Beach area, because that's what I loved. So they fall in love, and by the end of the summer, because of one fatal mistake, they're torn apart for 35 years. And the story unfolds telling what is happening in the lives of each of those two characters during that 35-year period. And like sea glass, at age 18, they're very jagged, and they're rough around the edges and make some bad decisions. But 35 years of getting tumbled and beat up by life and washed over with the truths of who they really are, they reconnect in their late 50s as much smoother and completely different than how they started out. And to get a little more detail into the actual storyline, when they're torn apart at 18, Denny is actually sentenced to prison for 40 years. And after he is sentenced, Jackie, who is still in love with him, obviously, finds out she's pregnant. And because it's 1969, she can't just necessarily say, like you would today, well, I'm going to raise this baby on my own and make this work.
Right.
It's 1969, and life didn't work out that way. Her parents basically got her to marry a family friend who would claim the child as his own, because that's what you had to do in those days.
Sure.
She couldn't necessarily say she was pregnant to a man in prison. And of course, nobody told Denny anything about this. It was a secret. So during that 35 years, she builds a life for herself around the myth of who's the father of her daughter and then granddaughter that she helps raise during that period. Well, Denny is released and comes back to Agape, Maine, because he has nowhere else to go. He was been sentenced since he was 18, and he comes back to live with his nephew. And it's after they see each other again, and Jackie realizes that he is free and he is back, that she has to decide whether or not to tell him he has a family, which is all he ever wanted, or to keep her secret and keep the life that she has, because revealing the truth could put everything at risk that she built without him.
Sure.
So that's the essence of the story.
Wow. So what was the genesis of that? What was this? What was the inspiration?
The inspiration actually for Denny came, a friend of mine, her father resembled physically what I wanted to write about. And he had kind of a wild life in the 60s. So that kind of sparked the idea of what happened, you know, if this person had made this kind of mistake and this took these turns in life. And
you have other books that are, you have a 2-book series beyond this one.
Yep, Moose Pond Lodge and The Thriving of Willows. Moose Pond Lodge is standalone, and Thriving of Willows picks up a year later with some of the same characters and what's happening in their lives. But you could read Moose Pond Lodge and not feel that you have to read the second one. But yeah, I would consider it a series.
Okay.
And it's just those two. I've moved on from that too. And
okay.
I have my 4th book completed that I'm tweaking a little bit. And it also starts in Maine, but it's not, it doesn't stay in Maine. They actually make their way to Nebraska, where I used to live, and very dear to my heart. Nebraska's in this book too.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right, well, we've reached that point of the show where we're going to do the 5. Karri has admitted that she cheated and has already looked at the 5, so she has her answers prepared. But let's go through the motions anyway. It's all right. Maybe you'll forget. Maybe you'll panic and you won't remember.
That's true. I have a very bad memory.
What you had planned out.
Yes.
So, question number 1. If they published an author's yearbook today and you were in it, what would you be voted most likely to do?
Most likely to keep repeating the same story over and over again, because I always forget if I've told people things. I do. My husband tells me all the time. He's like, you already told me that. Really? That is the story of my life. I tell people the same things over and over again.
That's the superlative?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Don't you think? That's a good
I
one?
don't know.
Or
This is
most
your-
likely to forget somebody's name. I am that person.
Okay. Now,
I am
see,
that
I would be
person.
voted that as
Yeah,
well. Okay.
I am. Yeah, I'll forget your name, your face, everything.
Okay.
Be like, did I meet you? And
So maybe more broadly, most likely to have a terrible memory.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Oh
All
my
right.
gosh, yes. Embarrassingly terrible.
Okay, that's good. Question 2: which 4 faces would appear on your author's Mount Rushmore?
Well, I am a lover of transcendentalism.
Are
So,
you?
Yes. And in fact, when we were stationed at Hanscom Air Force Base, I spent so much time just bumming around Concord and Walden Pond. And in fact, my husband made me a writing desk. He's a woodworker too. And he put Thoreau and Emerson's faces on the desk for me because the essays and writings of those two just knock me out.
That's
yes.
extraordinary.
So I would put those two
Okay.
great men. And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, of modern authors that really, really touched me and affected me. But I kept going back to when I was a little girl. I was the kid reading Laura Ingalls Wilder and Little House on the Prairie and those books. And that's what really sparked in me the idea that I could write stories. I wanted to do that. Even though I wanted a lot of other careers and jobs over my life, I always went back to thinking I could write stories. So Laura Ingalls Wilder and
Okay.
Louisa May Alcott.
Oh,
Because
okay.
Little Women was the same for me. Those were the two things I read as a kid that really put it in my head that girls write cool stories. I can do that too. So I think I would put those guys up there.
Okay, so that's a good mix. 2 guys, 2 gals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, that'll work. Question 3: what's something about you that almost nobody knows?
I spent a brief period, and I want to get back to it, studying Nichiren Buddhism. And I did chanting twice a day for a very long time. And the more I learned about it as a practice, not a religion, Nichiren Buddhism is something that almost like meditating that you can work into, no matter what your religious beliefs are. It's not adopting Buddhism as a whole,
Okay.
but it's chanting. And I started doing it with a friend of mine at Fort Knox. And every Tuesday night we went to classes where we learned about the significance of it and how you can, manifest more focus. And just like meditating, it gives you this sense of clarity and it calms your mind, which I need a lot, and reduces anxiety. And it really worked. And I loved doing it. And Tina Turner actually does it. She started doing it after she broke up with Ike and got away from him. And she started doing Nichiren Buddhism and the same chanting in order to heal from those experiences. Now, I don't have any crazy experiences to heal from, but I always loved yoga and meditating, and running gives me the same kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But the Nichiren Buddhism chanting it was just such an awesome experience every time I did it. And the more you do it, the more you start to feel the benefits. Same with, meditating and yoga.
Sure.
So I studied that for a while, and I really, really, really miss it and want to get back into it.
Huh. Question 4: what is your favorite curse word, and in what phrase would you be most likely to use it?
I say damn it all to hell a lot,
Okay.
like daily.
And finally, if the world ended right after this video,
geez.
what final message would you want to convey to your fans?
I didn't prepare this one. Honestly, I guess a final message would be that if anyone has read my stories, because there's stories close to my heart, if anyone has read my stories and felt anything or related to any sentence or passage or character, then that's all I ever asked for. That's all I ever wanted, and that's been my only goal, really, is to just share my stories and hope that someone has been touched by them. So,
And then poof.
yeah. Yes.
And
Thank you for reading my stories.
Yes,
Yes.
I think that should be the blanket one. Thank you for reading my stories,
Yes.
and it's a shame that you're all going to die.
Yes, exactly.
Type of thing, but what are you going to do? So The Weathering of Sea Glass, is this available on Amazon.com?
Yes, it's
Okay.
on Amazon and the Kindle version also.
Okay.
And I deliver copies around to people who contact me through my Facebook author page or my email.
Okay.
And they are in several stores, like I said. So
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it is possible for them to get a signed copy.
yes, Oh,
for when you
yes.
break out and then you're no longer
Yes, before the
available.
world ends. Yeah.
Before the world ends. That was just a question. It's not actually
Oh my
happening.
gosh.
I don't
I
think.
feel so
Although that would be
unprepared.
ironic.
I know.
That would be really weird. Oh my God.
Oh.
You predicted the end of the world. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And we'll see you next time on Tell Me About Your Damn Book.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.